Hi everyone, I'm Leslie Lee, dietitian at Swedish's Pediatric Resilience Program.
And I'm Alicia Essers, and I'm a feeding therapist and mindfulness teacher with Resilience.
And we're going to show you an easy family recipe today. We're always coaching families on the importance of trying to limit or avoid altogether refined carbohydrates and try to cook with whole food ingredients and focus on sources of protein, healthy fats, and high fiber foods. And so that's exactly what we're going to do today with a quiche. And Alicia, any guesses on what the crust of our quiche is going to be?
No, I have no idea. I didn't read the recipe. I'm excited to learn.
So there's no flour in the crust of this quiche. We're going to use this butternut squash to make our crust. And squash has a neck and a bulb down here. We're going to just cut the neck off. That's the part we want. So this I certainly want you to use. We'll talk more about that later. And now I'm going to peel the squash. I'm actually going to leave the topper on because I'm going to use it in our next step here. Just going to cut straight down, peel in our squash.
I like how you're slicing away from your fingers. I have to remind my kids that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. You never want to get your body between your knife and what you're trying to cut. And a butternut squash is a pretty dense piece of produce, so you might have whoever in your family has some really good knife skills to do this part. I don't even think I have really good knife skills. This is my compost bowl right here. Okay, so we're just gonna slice this and put the little rounds in this pie crust right here. And I'm gonna use a mandolin slicer. It slices everything the same thickness, and it's gonna make really quick work of this. If I didn't have a mandolin slicer, I could certainly just lay my squash here and make thin cuts. If you're doing that, make sure you have kind of the broadest flat side you can find on your squash down. That way it's going to be more stable, not going to slip out from under you. But this should go quite quickly. Oh, I'm going to take this off my cutting board because it's moving.
I love the idea of butternut squash for a base.
Yeah. You know, I think people think a meal is not a meal without a starch. Like you have to have bread or rice or pasta in the meal, and frankly that's not true. We don't have any biological need for simple starches, and a butternut squash like this can be kind of starchy and nice and comforting, but it's a whole food and it's higher in fiber than starches.
And in the wintertime, to find like fresh vegetables, squash is such a great go-to.
Absolutely. And it's unique because it's going to provide the same chemicals in a squash that provide this beautiful orange color also have great sort of health benefits for us too. So it's nice to include something in the orange yellow family in a meal. So
I was just going to ask, what are some of those things in the orange family?
Oh, like the benefits? No, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, because it's a lot.
Yeah. I'm going to put about a tablespoon of avocado oil on these slices. I don't know how much I have. It just looks like a fair amount in this pie plate, so I'm going to go with that. I'm also not going to measure this because you can kind of eyeball a tablespoon. Mostly we just want enough in here that everything's going to get coated really nicely in olive oil. Just the avocado oil. And I've got the oven preheating to 425.
And do you use avocado oil versus olive oil for a certain reason?
Yeah, I do. So avocado oil has a higher smoke point than olive oil, so it means it withstands higher temperatures and longer durations in the oven. We're roasting at 425, which is on the higher side and could take as long as 30 minutes. So I want to make sure our oil doesn't start burning. And then I'm just going to lay these flat, kind of in overlapping patterns, get these out of the way a little bit. All right, this doesn't have to be perfect or beautiful. We're going to put a whole quiche on top, so nobody's really going to be looking at this. And we can kind of take it up the sides a little bit.
So the fact that it's like thinner and you're using a high point oil, does it make it kind of crispy like another crust that maybe people have had before? Or what is kind of the...
I wouldn't say this turns out all that crispy, but
just a nice base, like contrast.
Exactly. All right, so here we have our crust. I am going to just salt and pepper it. Kind of hard to do with oil on your hands. So this is going to go in the oven, and while that cooks, we'll work on the rest of the quiche. So as you can see, I haven't used a whole squash. What I would do with this is go ahead and peel everything and cube it, little like 1 centimeter cubes. And you could either just toss it in some oil and roast it in the oven as a side dish. I might put like cumin, salt and pepper on it, or I think cinnamon would be a nice touch too. Or if I didn't have a need for butternut squash that week, I would still peel it and cube it, and I would toss it in the freezer. And so if I did this recipe again and I had another half butternut squash to add to the mix, then I'd probably have about 6 cups of cubed butternut squash, and that would be great for a side dish for a family dinner on another night, or making a butternut squash soup. Or what I did when my boys were younger, turned it into baby food. Okay, and so while our crust is baking in the oven, we're gonna prepare some vegetables to go in the quiche. And Alicia's going to dice an onion. Doesn't have to be real small or fine. Just do what you think is best. And I'm just gonna mince up some garlic. Now, normally I would probably not use this knife for garlic. I'd probably use something like that, but we only have one. And I'll just show you a couple of ways you can peel garlic pretty quickly. The first, if you're feeling lucky, is to just grab your clove and give it a hard pinch. And this breaks the peel around the clove, and it usually peels off pretty quickly. Voila. Oh, but this one's not the prettiest clove. And then the second way, if that's not working, you can actually just cut off the little woody stem right there. And then if it doesn't peel off right away, you can take your knife, hold it over the clove, and give it a smash. When you do this, you want to make sure the blade is pointing away from you so you don't hurt yourself, and really make sure your clove is pretty steady there. This is going to smash your clove, but we're going to mince it, so that's not a big deal. And there you go, it comes off really easily. And to mince this, you just run your knife through it. Again, this is not the ideal knife for mincing garlic. So use a nice kitchen knife like that, chef's knife.
And how much onion do you use?
I would usually say like 1 medium onion, and this one was pretty large, so we'll probably use 2/3 of that. And I've got a pan warming right here over about medium heat. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon This happens to be avocado oil, but olive oil would work great here too. Alright, so this. And Alicia, we have some children might be some ants in there.
For the after slice.
Alright. We're just gonna cook this until it's almost fully softened and almost translucent. And then in the last couple of minutes, we'll toss in the garlic and then we'll wilt in some spinach. So today we're using onion, garlic, spinach, and butternut squash, which was the crust. But the great thing about a quiche is you can do tons of different vegetables and change the flavor. So I think like zucchini, bell peppers, and onion and garlic would be great. If you had the time, you could caramelize onions and that would take it to the next level. Or mushrooms would be a really nice addition too. Or in place of the spinach, kale would work just as easily. Alright, our onions are getting pretty well softened, so I'm going to add garlic for about 30 seconds. The whole point is just to get the garlic a little fragrant, but we don't want it to burn. Can you smell it? Alright, you want to grab the spinach? The thing about spinach is this is going to cook down. We at least want a couple of cups in here. Raw. I'm going to see what it amounts to, and I might add more after this wilts.
Do you like to play around with spices when you, the different herbs when you make quiche? What are some of your favorites?
Well, I think thyme goes really well in quiches. I use that all the time. If I were doing like zucchini and bell peppers, onion and garlic, I would do oregano in that case. If it were fall or winter right now, sage would be nice, but it's spring, so I'm not going to go there. All right. Actually, I think this looks like plenty of spinach for a quiche. What do you think?
Yeah, and just kind of looking at the ratio of spinach to onion and recognizing that, you know, if you want more onion flavor, you might have a little more compared to spinach.
Now that you said that, I think it needs more spinach.
I'm a spinach lover. So
Yeah.
I tend to go heavier on that.
Yeah.
I feel like quiche is one of those foods, like you said, you can adapt it in a lot of different ways, and it can become like one go-to dish that looks different every time you make it.
In every season. We're not adding meat today, but you easily could, and that would make it even more filling and certainly affect the flavor. All right, so here's our spinach, onion, and garlic. It's all set. I'm just gonna set it aside. I want it to cool a little bit, so that when we add the egg on top of it, it doesn't just immediately scramble the eggs. Thank you. We're gonna check our. Ooh, this is looking good. All right. So after 15 minutes, at 425. Our thin slices of squash are looking kind of transparent, so it shows me that they're cooked through. They're also starting to brown a little bit, so now's a really great time to take it out of the oven. If you slice this by hand and your slices are a little thicker, it might need more time.
I've kind of been converted from a strict recipe follower to a more wing it the more I make things, and you kind of just start understanding, oh, okay, it looks like a little more here, a little more there. But as I'm watching you, I'm like, you're not referring to your recipe at all. You're just like doing it, so you must have a lot of experience doing this.
Well, I do have quite a bit of experience, and I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like if you don't have a lot of experience, cooking can be really intimidating. And, you know, even though cooking is chemistry, nothing that we're doing today is like so precise that we have to have like super specific measurements. I mean, we're going to use 8 eggs and a half a cup of half and half. If we used 6 eggs and 3/4 cup half and half, we would still get a quiche out of this. So
yeah, right.
And I also like my recipes to be as practical as possible. So if you can just wing it, or measurements are in their simplest form, that's how I like to work.
May only have 6 eggs at home.
Yeah, absolutely. If I only had 6 eggs at home, I'd throw some bacon, sausage, or ham in it to kind of beef it up a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, 8 eggs. We'll do half a cup of half and half. You could use whole milk, you could use heavy cream.
What would a milk alternative be? Have you tried anything?
I haven't tried anything. I imagine you could use many of them, just certainly get unsweetened. I prefer something with a little fat in it because this half and half is going to have some good fat in it. So maybe an oat milk would be a good option. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about flavor. What would be? I mean, I know I've done quiches without milk too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
I have
probably
too,
wouldn't
actually.
have that like fluff maybe.
Yeah. This is some dried thyme. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of that. And salt and pepper. I tend to undersalt things when I cook and then let everybody add as much salt as they want to theirs. But a good place to start for this might be about half a teaspoon. I like lots of big pepper. I don't know about anybody else. All right, I'm gonna just whisk this all up till it's well incorporated.
I was actually thinking about the milk alternative, and I feel like maybe going with like cashew might be the best flavor.
That sounds great. All right, so mix your eggs until everything looks the same. And then we're gonna add a cup of cheese. So you could do a half cup, you could do 3/4 cup. We've got Parmesan here. I'm not even gonna use this. I can eyeball this, right? Just a big handful. There we go. The reason I don't like to use measuring tools if I don't have to is because somebody has to do the dishes when it's all said and done, and so I'm trying to make everyone's life easier. All right. I'm using Parmesan here, but Gruyere would be great. Goat cheese would be great too. Swiss would be good. Okay. So I'm just gonna put my spinach, onion, garlic mixture in our crust. Spread it out so it's all even. Look at the beautiful colors. And pour my egg mixture on top of that. This has a lot of cheese in it. No one minds. And I'm just gonna move it around, just make sure that egg gets incorporated kind of all around the spinach here. There we go. And we'll bake. So today I'm using some pre-shredded cheese. I'm kind of breaking my own rule. Usually I would buy the actual cheese and shred it myself. But I wanted a convenience item, and this is just cheese. The store itself had shredded this cheese, so this really meets my standards. If you're buying some prepackaged shredded cheese, you want to read the ingredients, because a lot of times they have additives in them to prevent mold and to prevent clumping, and we don't want you eating additives. We want you to eat real whole food.
Ooh, puffed up so nice.
It did. It's nice, puffed up, golden brown, and that was about 30 minutes in the oven at 400 degrees. You want to let this set for about 10 minutes before you cut into it, so now would be a good time to set the table, tell the kids to go wash their hands, and corral everybody.